Hello friends, welcome to UGC EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Jaydeep Sharangi, Faculty Department of English, Jogesh Chandra Chaudhary College, University of Calcutta, Kolkata. Today we are going to learn the introductory module on university wits and their contribution to the growth and development of drama before William Shakespeare. This module is written by Professor Vishweshwar Chakraborty, who teaches English at Jharram Raj College, Government under Vidyasagar University. Possibly by the time you were aware of the growth and development of drama during Middle English period and leading to the early part of the Elizabethan period. The university wits are the university graduates of Oxford and Cambridge. They contributed a lot to the setting of dramatic performances and dramatic literature before the arrival of William Shakespeare. In this particular module, we are going to analyze the university wits in details, their contribution, the features of their drama leading up to the platform for William Shakespeare. We are also to explain the contribution of different university wits in respect of their dramatic traditions. Let us start with a quotation by George Saintsbury, who speaks in terms of the university graduates of University of Oxford and Cambridge during the early Elizabethan phase as the university wits. He is the first person to categorize a bunch of writers or dramatists, playwrights, who emerged in the early Elizabethan phase and made their influence felt, are known as university wits. In measurement of contribution, they are very significant because they marked the arrival of important dramatists later on in the stage like Ben Jonson and William Shakespeare. Saintsbury says, in the first place, we have the group of university wits, the strenuous, if not always, wise band of professed men of letters, at the head of whom are Lyly, Marlowe, Greene, Peele, Lodge, Nash, and probably Kidd. In the second, we have the irregular band of outsiders, players and others, who felt themselves forced into literary and principally dramatic composition, who boast Shakespeare as their chief, and who can claim as second to him not merely the imperfect talents of Chettle, Mundy, and others whom we may mention in this chapter, but many of the perfected ornaments of later time. Uncut. So goes Saintsbury. Now, friends, we should begin with the features of these playwrights' plays first. Edward Albert, in his History of English Literature published in 1979, argues that the plays of university wits have the following categories or characteristics. Number one, there was a fondness for heroic themes such as the lives of great figures like Muhammad and Tamburlaine. These university wits explode to the full potential to the popular figures like Muhammad and Tamburlaine. Christopher Marlowe used the term Tamburlaine and theme of Tamburlaine in his wonderful production entitled Tamburlaine the Great. Heroic themes needed heroic treatment, great fullness of variety and splendid descriptions. If we examine all the plays written by the university wits, their contributions are the flowers of the time. Long swelling speeches, long dialogues move us. The handling of violent incidents and emotions. If we look into the theatrical performances written by the university wits, they are drenched with bloodshed, murder, motive of revenge, and they have excess of emotional exuberance. These qualities excel and had restraint only too often to lead loudness and disorder. Often these particular habits of life lead to disorder, and which set as contrast to the Greek ancient theatre houses as we think of. The style was also heroic. By heroic style we mean the chief aim was to achieve strong accents and strong robust lines and their heroic actions as demonstrated by the tragic protagonists. We can refer to the bombast and mouthing sentences and phrases in the utterings of the protagonists that we are referring to. At the same time, the best example can be Marlowe. The result is quite impressive. And in this context, it is to be noted the most medium for such expression and extensive use of blank verse, which lead us to esoteric, and sufficiently elastic to bear the strong pressure of the expansive method as augured and augmented by the university wits of the early Elizabethan period. The themes were usually tragic in nature. Most of the university wits use tragic themes as the subjective discourse during the onslaught of their plays. And the dramatists were at a rule too much of the earnest to give heed to what was considered to be the lower species of comedy. Actually, comedy was treated as a lower species of genre during that time, but much of the attention was paid to tragedy. The general lack of real humor in early drama is one of the most prominent features. The drama was not humorous. Humor was considered to be a scene in a dramatic performance during that time, and all the writers contributed to the uploading and upbringing of the dramatic tradition of the early Elizabethan period before the advent of Ben Jonson and William Shakespeare. Now, after a discussion of the characteristics in general, let us concentrate on individual writers and their contributions. We can start with John Lyly, who was between 1554 AD and 1660 AD, and his important plays include The Women in the Moon, a most excellent comedy of Alexander and Compassi, Sappho and Faugh, Endymion, Galatea, Love's Metamorphosis. By the suggestive titles, you can understand there is a tendency to upheaval or to refer back to the historical past as the comedy of Alexander. At the same time, Lyly is noted for his beautiful cadence and subjective corpus. He is the sole representative of romantic comedy among the university wits. Lyly's plays are full of lovely songs, and they exerted a considerable influence on later dramatists. The phrase that comes in mind in Lyly, faded charm. They are unparalleled. The subplots are not always effectively knitted up to the main story, but on the whole, Lyly's contribution is enormous to the subjective development of the early Elizabethan theatre in the hands of university wits. We also think that the new idea of comedy is been planted by the able hands of John Lyly. Let us talk about George Peele, another important contributor, individual contributor of university wits. George Peele was born in 1558 and died in 1597. His life was very short. Born in London, educated at Christ Hospital at Oxford, and came to be a literary hack and freelancer in London. His important plays include the famous Chronicle of King Edward I, the rambling chronicle play, the Battle of Alsager, the love of King David and fair Bathsheba, the Old Wives' Tale, 1591. Peele's style sometimes appeared to be crude to the point of being absurd, but with his gift for occasional lyricism, fantasy, fluency, Peele is also noted as one of the important contributors among the university wits who set the tone for William Shakespeare and Ben Jonson and later on other theatrical giants to perform their shows. After Peele, the name that comes to our mind is Robert Greene. Robert Greene was born in 1560 and died in 1592. So he lived only for 32 years. But he contributed a lot to the growth and development of drama before William Shakespeare. He was born in Norwich, educated at Cambridge and Oxford, and then took a literary life in London. He was treated as a Londoner, and his important plays include The Honourable History of Friar Bacon and Friar Bungay, The Scottish History of James IV, Orlando Furioso, Alphonsus, King of Aragon. And the King of Aragon is an imitation of Marlowe's Tamburlaine. Orlando Furioso is adapted from English translation of Ariosto. The Scottish History of James IV is not a historical play, but based on the imaginary occurrences in the life of the person concerned. The Honourable History of Friar Bacon and Friar Bungay is undoubtedly his best creation and most noted and celebrated. Greene's plays are characterized by craftsmanship, a skillful mixture of realistic and native background with a collage of images. His style is not brilliant. He is not noted for exuberance of images, but he is noted for methods and also an important style. That's why he is a prominent member of the university wits before William Shakespeare. After Greene, we can go ahead with Nash and Lodge, two important contributors among the university wits are Thomas Nash and Thomas Lodge. Thomas Nash was born in 1567, whereas Thomas Lodge was born in 1557. If we look into their birth years, they are almost contemporary. Born in Lowestoft, educated at Cambridge, and then went to London to eke out living through literature. It is now established the fact that the finished Marlowe's Dido, but only surviving play Summer's Last Will and Testament, a satirical masque. Thomas Nash is also noted for his brilliant cadence and style, and therefore he is recalled as an important contributor among the Elizabethan university wits. Thomas Lodge, born in London, educated at Cambridge, he was basically a student of law, but he discarded legal profession and took to literary career. He probably collaborated with Shakespeare in Henry VI, and Thomas Lodge is also a champion in scholastic presentation, and at the same time he is known as an important contributor among the university wits. Among the individual playwrights of the university wits, we cannot forget the scholarship and performance made by Kidd. Kidd is an important dramatist among the university wits. Thomas Kidd was born in 1558 and died in 1594. Born in London, educated at Merton Taylor School, and adapted as a literary career. Of his extant plays, the Spanish tragedy 1585 is often been considered as a trademark tragedy that ushered new area of tragedies. Modeled on Senecan plays, Spanish tragedy is based on blood for blood's sake or a revenge play motif. The division of acts, the bloody climax, and the revenge itself are the chief concerns of the Spanish tragedy. The Spanish tragedy established a new genre in English drama, the revenge play or revenge tragedy. In respect of that, the contribution of Thomas Kidd is enormous. To many critics, Thomas Kidd also prompted William Shakespeare to write his revenge plays like Hamlet. To only the extent play known to be Kidd's is Cornelia. So the importance of Thomas Kidd is never been sidelined or can never be bypassed. So after Thomas Kidd, we may move into the most important contributor among the university wits, Christopher Marlowe. I think among the audience and the participants today, they can recall some of the important works by Christopher Marlowe. His lifespan 1564 AD to 1593 AD. Born at Canterbury, received education there and at Cambridge, and took literature as a profession and became attached to the Lord Admiral's players in London. His plays, all tragedies, were composed within 5 years of time. Proper appreciation of Marlowe can be made if we can put our emphasis on the dramatic performances, if we look into his tragedies carefully. Among his important tragedies we may mention Dr. Faustus, the Jew of Malta, Tamburlaine the Great, and all these tragedies. There are beautiful use of poetic verses and the presentation of the poetic protagonist. Tamburlaine the Great, it's about Tamburlaine and his conquest of the world. In Barabbas, we see the world conqueror through money. Barabbas is the central protagonist in The Jew of Malta, performed in the year 1591. By far the best among all his plays is Dr. Faustus. Dr. Faustus, performed in 1592, is a product of the Renaissance scholarship. He is a product of superhuman knowledge, black art, and Dr. Faustus invites Mephistopheles to butter away his soul for all voluptuousness. Dr. Faustus is possibly one of the best tragedies written by the mighty hands of university wits. Edward II. Edward II is an important tragedy by Christopher Marlowe, where Marlowe attempted a chronicle play designed for writing a historical record of original Edward II, and the play exercises some of the important episodes like the killing of Edward II, like banishment of Gaveston, and the opening scene of the play sums up how Gaveston is liked by Edward II, and which is a cause for dislike for the people of his own country. It also causes a kind of superior diplomacy between the British and the French. Edward II, among the Marlowean texts, proves to be an important text where the crux between the Britishers and the French is being exercised perfectly. In Edward II, abdication scene happens to be one of the premier scenes among the pre-Shakespearean dramas. Edward Albert comments on Christopher Marlowe. Let us read the comment. Though not the first to use blank verse in English drama, he was the first to exploit its possibilities and make it supreme. His verse is notable for its burning energy, its splendor of diction, its sonorous richness, its variety of pace, and its responsiveness to the demands of varying emotions. Full of primary colors, his poetry is is crammed with imagery from the classics, from astronomy and from geography, an imagery barbaric in its wealth and splendor. Its romance and power led Ben Jonson to coin the phrase Marlowe's mighty line. But its might has often obscured its technical precision and its admirable lucidity and finish. Unquote. We shouldn't forget the contribution made by Christopher Marlowe. The most important contribution of Marlowe, he paved the way for William Shakespeare. We cannot deny the fact that Christopher Marlowe first time introduced comic scenes in a tragic play, which sets out a departure from the Aristotelian framework and definition of a tragedy as a serious drama as defined by Aristotle in Poetics chapter 5. Friends, after going through module 30 on Introduction to University Wits, we can sum it up in this way. In this particular module, we looked into the role of the university wits. We tried to embrace the meaning and the definition of university wits. We studied the characteristics or basic features of all university wits and their contributions individually. At the end, we elaborated the individual contributions and their signal contributions and significance in the dramatic tradition before William Shakespeare. I hope it helped you a lot. Thank you.